The first animal in space, Laika's sacrifice. It was a cold winter morning in Moscow, 1957, when the world would unknowingly witness a moment that would alter the course of history. As the harsh winds howled down the streets of the city, a small, unassuming figure in a kennel awaited her fate. Laika, a stray dog from the rough streets of Moscow, had no way of knowing that she was about to make history. She was about to become the first living being to travel into space. Laika was found wandering the streets of Moscow, abandoned and vulnerable, her life seemingly insignificant in the grand scheme of things. But it was these very streets, filled with cold concrete and the loneliness of the stray, that would eventually lead her to an opportunity that few could have ever imagined for a dog like her. The Soviet Union, in its intense race for space dominance, had its eyes set on the stars. But before human astronauts could brave the vast unknown of space, they needed to know if living creatures could survive the harsh conditions. It was an insurmountable task, one fraught with risk, but for the Soviet scientists, Laika was the answer. The decision to send Laika into space wasn't one taken lightly. Scientists had chosen her because of her ability to endure the extreme conditions of her environment, her calm demeanor, and her resilience. She, like the Soviet Union itself, was about to embark on a journey of unprecedented sacrifice, one that would ensure that mankind could one day conquer the stars. For Laika, the journey began in a small laboratory. Her world had changed from one of scrounging for food and surviving the bitter cold of Moscow's back alleys, to one of experimentation and isolation. She was trained to handle the confined spaces of the spacecraft, a tiny capsule that would hold her during the mission. Her days were filled with strange tests, as scientists poked and prodded, trying to understand how her body would respond to the unbearable conditions she would face. They monitored her heartbeat, tested her physical limits, and prepared her for what was to come. They hoped she would withstand the shock of liftoff, the weightlessness of space, the cold and the pressure that no living being had ever endured before. But even as they conducted their experiments, a dark cloud of doubt loomed over them. Everyone knew that there was a high risk Laika would not survive. The technology at the time was crude, and the spacecraft, Sputnik 2, was designed with little regard for the well-being of the animal inside. The Soviets had no plans for her return, and there was little to no hope for her survival. She was the sacrifice, a small, brave creature who would give her life for the pursuit of knowledge, for the glory of the Soviet Union, and for the hopes of future space exploration. The day of the launch arrived, and the eyes of the world turned toward the launch pad. Laika, once a simple stray dog, now found herself locked inside a capsule, suspended in the cold vacuum of space. Her tiny body was strapped into place, and as the countdown began, she could only brace for the unknown. The spacecraft, a small metal ball with only a few square feet of space, contained Laika and the bare minimum of life support systems to keep her alive, for a time. As the countdown reached zero, the massive rocket engines ignited, sending Laika and the spacecraft hurtling toward the heavens. As the rocket ascended, Laika's body felt the brutal force of liftoff, as the pressure pushed her small frame into the seat. She was weightless, disoriented, and terrified. But amid the chaos of the journey, she did what she knew best: she endured. The scientists on the ground watched anxiously, knowing that every second counted. The fear of what might happen, of what Laika might face in the cold, unforgiving expanse of space, was palpable. But despite all the planning, despite the best efforts of the scientists, things went horribly wrong. As Laika ascended into space, the conditions inside the capsule began to deteriorate. The temperature inside the spacecraft soared. Laika, a living being who had once known the warmth of the sun on the streets of Moscow, was now in an environment so hostile it would soon be too much for her to bear. The radiation, the heat, and the stress of the journey began to take a toll on her. Laika did not survive the journey, but she was not alone in her suffering. As her tiny body was thrust into the cold expanse of space, she became part of something much greater than herself. She had become the first animal to orbit the Earth, and her sacrifice paved the way for human space exploration. Her mission, though tragic, proved that living beings could survive the immense pressures of space. Her story was one of bravery, a simple dog that had been asked to make the ultimate sacrifice for the sake of science and progress. In the years that followed, Laika's legacy lived on. Her story became a symbol of sacrifice, a reminder of the cost of progress. The Soviet Union went on to achieve incredible success in space exploration, sending the first humans into space, and eventually landing on the moon. But Laika, the first living being to touch the heavens, was never forgotten. She had paid the ultimate price for the advancement of humanity, and her story would be forever etched in the annals of history. Her sacrifice did not go unnoticed. In 2008, a small monument was erected in Moscow to honor Laika. It was a tribute to the dog that had given her life so that humanity could reach for the stars. The monument stands as a reminder of the cost of progress, and of the animals like Laika who made it possible. Laika's story is one of profound emotion, sacrifice, and triumph. Her journey, though brief and painful, was a pivotal moment in human history. She did not ask for fame, nor did she seek glory. She was simply a dog, doing what she had been asked to do, to survive, to endure, and to sacrifice for the greater good. And in doing so, she became an unsung hero in the race for space, a pioneer whose courage and sacrifice would inspire generations to come.